Hello, this is Dr. Tara Van Zant Stern with SSD Global Solutions, Smart, Simple Decision Making. We are the sponsors of the Rocky Mountain Quality Consortium, and my guest today is Lamont Rogers. He serves as the Program Manager for Transmission and Power Supply at Tennessee Valley Authority. He will be talking today on Quality One-on-One, Lean, Six Sigma, and Agile Project Management. This is an overview, and Lamont, I'd like to welcome you to our program.
I'm glad to be here.
So I want to tell you a little bit about Lamont Rogers. He serves as a program manager for transmission and power supply at Tennessee Valley Authority. He's had over 30 years of large-scale program project management experience. His background includes being a senior project manager for major business systems implementation, multi-site asset migration, and IT application upgrades. He has also taught at the university level and provided corporate training and made conference presentations. Lamont is a certified project management professional. He's also IBM certified in Maximo Access Asset Management and Database Administration. I'm so pleased to have Lamont here with us today. Lamont, I'm going to hand it over to you to let you tell us about Quality 101, Lean, Six Sigma, and Agile Project Management.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stern, and again, I'm glad to be here. My name is Lamont Rogers. As Dr. Stern said, my presentation is on Quality 101, Lean, Six Sigma, and Agile Project Management. It's an overview. We will discuss fundamentals. We assume no prior knowledge, and there's nothing required for this overview other than to be here and try to take it all in and hopefully have some fun. I would like to start by saying this is an exciting time for quality, as we will see in the course of this presentation. When we finish, you should have a better understanding of fundamental concepts and terminology of Lean, Six Sigma, and Agile Project Management. Okay, what we will cover. We'll have a brief whirlwind tour of quality and the ways to approach it. We'll talk about the common themes of Lean, Six Sigma, and project management in general, and specifically Agile Project Management. These are the reasons that it's an exciting time. All three of these themes have been around for quite a while, but the interaction among them, especially the project management part, is rapidly changing. I'd like to start out by showing you an attention-getting slide. Okay, everybody loves puppies, but what in the world is the connection to quality? Well, you can tell by the look on this sweet pup's face that it loves its owner. The puppy, like just about all dogs, strives to please. In their eyes, I'm sure they are striving for excellence. And I often say to people, because I'm an animal lover, specifically a dog lover, when my dog looks at me, the thought that goes through my mind is, I'm always trying to become the person my dog already thinks I am. Okay, so since everybody loves puppies, it would be great if everybody could love quality. All right, so why should we love quality? Because it sounds good? Because it's the right thing to do? Because it saves time and money? Because it adds value to the company? Because it increases the value of our personal brand? Well, let's think about that for a minute. All these points are important, but what about our personal brand? Branding has become a popular word. So if people associate your personal brand with quality, your influence, your ideas, your suggestions, and your leadership will be greatly enhanced, and you will be more effective. That is, more successful. Okay, let's take a look at this slide, another dramatic slide. Do you think quality is important to this guy? Well, I think you could say that. I think you could say his life depends on it. The quality in the design, the materials, the assembly, and the training of everything associated with what he is doing right now. The list goes on and on. He needs everything he has in the picture and nothing else to cause distraction, add extra weight, etc., etc., or he won't be able to do another jump the next time. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the definitions of quality. Quality is a mindset, a process, or a procedure. Is it an operational definition? Is it different things to different people? What about VOC? VOC stands for the voice of the customer. It is a big topic in the concepts of Lean Six Sigma. We should all strive for quality to be an integral part of everything we do. Most of us work to provide a product or a service or both. The voice of the customer is the interaction and the work that we do for wages, for the sales of our products, for the services we provide. It's an important concept in both Lean Six Sigma and project management, especially in the newer or more recent ideas in project management, as we shall see. All right, let's look at ancient quality. Here is the Great Pyramid of Giza. All right, anyone would have to agree that it has stood the test of time. It was built with precision and with consistent quality over a period of many years. It was also built with ingenuity before the advent or age of modern tools. All right, so how do we achieve quality? How did the ancient Egyptians achieve quality? Is it by accident, by design, by practice? Well, by accident is unlikely, by design is definitely, and by practice, you bet. Those are the things that it takes to achieve quality. Let's examine some of the principles and fundamentals. All right, let's start with Lean. Lean is all about reducing waste. Lean, as its name implies, means cutting out excess. It's easy to conceptualize and see this when looking at a manufacturing assembly line, which is the little graphic on this page. I believe that is Henry Ford's Model T assembly line. He used the principle to produce the Model T and to make it affordable to the masses. Before standardization in assembly lines, everything was hand-fitted and customized. It was a huge initial cost, and it was a huge maintenance, because everything had to be individually dealt with. Okay, we often associate Lean with the 8 wastes, and we have an acronym for that called Tim Woods that we'll go over on the next page. Okay, so these are the 8 wastes of Lean. And I won't read every word of every term, but the terms themselves are easy to understand. Transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects, and skills. These are the keys to reducing waste. Okay, so back to the Model T. Was the Model T successful? Was it a quality product? Does Ford still use quality in their motto? I think they do. In fact, I believe I saw just the other day or heard on the television that in a Ford commercial, quality is job one. All right, Six Sigma. All right, Six Sigma is all about reducing errors. So let's talk just a minute about this graph. This is known as the bell curve or the bell-shaped curve. It shows standard deviations from that center line that bisects the peak of the curve. And Six Sigma is 6 standard deviations on either side of the center line. And as you can see, when you go out 6 standard deviations, you have encompassed almost everything within the bell-shaped curve. So, if you look at the description at the very edge of the slide, it says 3.4 defects per million. Alright, so that means that out of producing a million widgets, let's say, there would only be 3.4 defects among them. Alright, let's look at it in a tabular form. And I'd like to draw your attention to the last row in this matrix. Six Sigma, in the world of spelling, means one misspelled word in all of the books in a small library. In terms of money, it's a $2 indebtedness per $1 billion in assets. In terms of time, it's 6 seconds per century. And the column DPMO, that stands for defects per million opportunities. And again, it's 3.4 out of 1 million. So almost no errors. Okay, now as I was gathering information and material for this presentation, I had no trouble associating any example with anything I was going to explain, but I had to really think about Six Sigma. And then finally a little idea went off, a little light bulb in my head about a topic that I could personally relate to, and that is playing a musical instrument. Alright, so let's take a look here at the young lady. Everybody's heard the term practice makes perfect. Well, what about the human drive for excellence? It's something we can all understand, and it's something we've all learned as we grow up. Before she plays at the recital, she must learn and coordinate a massive amount of tasks. She must read the music and translate the notes into hand-eye coordination with her fingers on the piano keys. She must play in a consistent tempo, which means play the music in time. And most of all, and this is really the tie to Six Sigma, most of all, she has to avoid mistakes. Because when you make mistakes playing a musical instrument, it almost always sounds rancid. And the audience kind of turns their nose up and says, man, this is not good. Okay, so when you see someone perform, and they perform the way you expect, it looks easy. But in fact, it is very, very difficult. Alright, well, to keep you involved with the rest of this presentation, I thought I would present a little musical challenge to you. So we'll do a little trivia. So this is a slide of someone famous. As a child, as a teen, he's a well-known guitar player. He wrote and performed with his group one of the most famous and recognizable hard rock songs of all time. He's an old guy now, but he's still around, and the rock from his era is now called classic rock. So if you'll hang on to the end of the presentation, I'll tell you who this guy is. Maybe you will have figured it out by that time. Okay, let's move on now to the Lean Six Sigma DMAIC cycle. Okay, so these are the basic building blocks of Lean Six Sigma. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Notice that the phases are arranged in a circle. The entire presentation could be made on this alone, but we only have time for the highlights in the fundamentals class, so we'll move on. Okay, within these activities, within these processes, there are activities. And I'm not going to read each one of those, but you have this here for a reference. These are the main things that you would progress through as you were following the DMAIC cycle. Some of the ones that I will call your attention to over in the define column are initiate the project. That's how you really get things kicked off. It's very important to have the initiation done properly. Defining the customer requirements, that's a reference back to the voice of the customer. And moving on in the second column, evaluating risks on the inputs. And in the next to the last column, verifying the critical inputs using planned experiments. Again, these are the building blocks that are used to implement the MAIC. The order generally proceeds like reading a book, downwards and then to the right. But repeats and overlaps are performed as needed. And remember, the previous page showed the phases in a circular fashion. So if you follow these steps, you will build quality into the product. Quality, in fact, will be the glue that holds the thing together. It is collectively the essence of project management. Okay, let's go back to the pyramid. Remember this? Okay, it's also one of the earliest examples of project management. Quality, again, was an integral part of building the Great Pyramid of Giza. Okay, this pyramid shape, I chose this shape for the slide because it is also symbolic in other slides that we're going to see later on. Remember, many people worked many years to create the pyramids. Organization was essential to accomplishing the task. Now we're going to take a quick look at the PM, or project management, life cycle. Okay, so the project management life cycle. This is the project management life cycle as laid out by the Project Management Institute, or PMI. They break a project life cycle down into these process groups: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing. These are not necessarily done in a precise order. There is much overlap, especially with monitoring and controlling, which generally overlaps all of the other ones. Well, we've talked about project management, so let's say what a project is. A project is a project because it has a beginning and an end. If it doesn't have an end, it's not really a project. It's rather an ongoing activity. Okay, we're going to see a couple of other examples of project methodologies as well in some future slides. Okay, moving on for now. The infamous iron triangle, or triple constraint. This is fairly common to all projects, and it is the foundation for the Project Management Institute. You have the three-sided triangle with scope, time, and cost. It's thought of as a triangle because anytime you change one side, it's going to affect the other two. And notice what's right in the center of it. It's quality. Quality, quality, quality. Here's a whimsical look at some project perspectives. Alright, I threw this one in just for fun to show some perspectives of the various points of view. Alright, so this thing is titled How Projects Really Work. And remember the voice of the customer that we talked about earlier in the slides? Well, the voice of the customer is in the bottom right corner. This is what the customer really wanted and really needed. The customer is the one that pays the money. The customer gets the product or service. So we should always strive to produce what's in the picture at the lower right corner. All right, now for some perspective. Projects historically and traditionally have been developed using what's known as the waterfall methodology. You start with the analysis and design, then you do your building and testing, and finally you deploy it. It's thought of always, always, always as one big project. It flows downward, hence its name, waterfall. It's always based, as I said a minute ago, on a large effort, and it proceeds from beginning design to a major delivery at the end. And that means a single design at the beginning to a single major delivery at the end. Now let's take a look at what's going on in today's world. In today's fast-paced world, a new way of performing project management is gaining traction, and it's gaining traction fast. It's called Agile Project Management. It's a modified approach. It's based on 4 values and 12 principles, and the third bullet here is perhaps the most important. Rapid deployment is the key. With Agile, we have smaller increments using a higher degree of customer interaction whenever the products are delivered. Customer involvement and interaction is key to Agile, and that again is voice of the customer. All right, we'll go over just a few of the values and the principles. The 4 values stress, I'm only going to read the things that are underlined. Stress individuals and interactions, stress working software, stress customer collaboration, stress responding to change. Hopefully you can see the voice of the customer in these, especially in the last 2. Okay, this all came about with something known as the Agile Manifesto. And I mentioned that it's fairly recent. It actually was born in 2001. It was born in a conference where a number of people, I think it was around 17 or 18, got together and came up with this manifesto. And these were heads of companies, smart people, successful people, etc., etc. If you want to take a look at the Agile Manifesto, you can just go to the internet and type in agilemanifesto.org/history. It'll give you the background for the Agile Manifesto. All right, the principles. There's 12 principles. They all stress rapid delivery of results. I'm only going to go over a few of these. Highest priority is customer satisfaction through continuous delivery. Frequency of delivery, 2 weeks to 2 months, with preference for shorter time scale. Generally, the time scale is 2 to 3 weeks. And notice the next one, business and developers must work together daily. That's another big difference between Agile and traditional waterfall. With traditional waterfall, people that developed generally worked in a vacuum for long periods of time. But with Agile, people work together closely on a daily basis. Okay, on this slide, let's take a look at the last one. At regular intervals, the project team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts their behavior accordingly. So there's an adjustment mechanism that can be exercised throughout the project management cycle with Agile. Again, that's a big difference between Agile and waterfall. And if you want to learn more, there are many YouTube references to Agile, because Agile is new, and pretty much everything new and much of what's old is on the internet. So if you go out and look at YouTube for Agile references, you'll see that most of them stress a short timeline to develop, and in fact, a short timeline to understand. As I mentioned a moment ago, most Agile deliveries are 2 to 3 weeks. And there's a really good example out on YouTube from projectmanager.com. It's called Agile Project Management, Scrum and Sprint Demystified. And we'll go over some of those terms here right now. All right, let's take a look one more time at the methodology. Instead of one large project with a delivery at the end, instead of that, Agile is broken down into pieces. The pieces are called sprints. And notice in this graphic, we have 3 sprints, each of which is divided into planning, designing, building, testing, reviewing, and then launching, or the delivery, if you will. Okay, comparing Agile to Waterfall graphically. Notice that Waterfall on the bottom has one continuous large project starting with requirements and design and then building and implementation, whereas Agile is broken down into pieces called sprints. So Agile is really set up to do things in today's world where everything is fast-paced. Okay, now let's try to tie it all together. Lean and Agile project management. Lean and Agile project management applies the Lean principles, the Six Sigma principles, and the Agile mindset during each phase. It accomplishes this by using templates where possible to save time. Within that, you stress ways to mistake-proof the process along the way to minimize any rework. It's also very important to hold lessons learned meetings along the way to gain efficiency and to make sure everyone understands what's going on and to make sure that everyone is listening to and delivering to please the customer, voice of the customer. Okay, and the last bullet there, better, faster, more cost-effective, eliminate waste. All right, some of the common tools and templates that are used in Agile project management come from the world of Lean Six Sigma. You have a charter which initiates and establishes the goal of the overall project. You have something that's known as a SIPOC, which stands for suppliers, input, process, output, and customers, which is a tool that's used to lay verbiage out in blocks so that anyone looking on can understand the relationship among them. Another common tool is PDCA, which stands for Plan, Do, Check, and Act. And for very simple things, it is a way that you could do the entire project. Another common term is KPI. KPI means Key Process Indicators. These are used at all companies, especially large companies, and they're typically associated with scorecards, balanced scorecards, where a company lists its primary goals and how successful they are in achieving the goals. And then one of the most common detail tools is known as the WBS, or Work Breakdown Structure. This is where you break a project down into pieces so that they can be handed out to individual people. All right, some Agile specific terms. Scrum is the way Agile is typically performed. It begins with a planning meeting. It ends with a review and lessons learned. Sprints are the work cycle. They're usually less than 1 month long. They're typically about 2 to 3 weeks long. And then the progress that is achieved during each sprint is typically tracked in a burn down chart, which we'll see on the next slide. I want to say one more thing. I don't have a slide for this, but oftentimes the work that is done is initially written down on sticky notes and pasted on a whiteboard. That becomes what's called the user story. And then those are arranged in a logical fashion, and those become the sprints. Okay, so here's a burn down chart. On the x-axis, we have a calendar, which is typically daily increments. And on the y-axis, we have work hours. And then as we accomplish the products of the sprint, we simply plot the progress and compare it against the regression line. And it's called a burn down chart for obvious reasons. At the end of the sprint, you hope that there's no work remaining to be done. Okay, so let's talk a moment about the relationship between methodology and quality. All right, let's take a look at these two. All right, they're both pyramids, so we're tying back into the Great Pyramid of Giza. The waterfall on the left is the traditional way that big projects were done. You have the features, which are typically designed in at the outset, and then they are rolled out with time and cost. And notice quality, although it is in the center, notice that quality emerges as the project is worked. Compare that to Agile on the right side, where you have cost and time up at the top, and notice that quality is all in green, because quality is easier to design in to the Agile approach, because it is easy to build in with cost and time. The variable with the Agile are the features, and features can always be added with additional sprints. Agile is well suited when all of the features of the product are not necessarily known at the outset, that can be added with additional sprints as time and money allow. So again, the key takeaway from this slide is the color. It's with the Agile, it's with the green color of quality in the Agile triangle. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the Agile advantages. Carpe diem. That literally means seize the day. Okay, so as it applies to Agile, you want to take advantage of emerging opportunities as they appear. Agile is great for projects where all the requirements are not known as the outset. But you can start fulfilling project obligations and then do more sprints as requirements emerge. There's always more work than there is time and money, so we all have to prioritize. We've all learned to do this at an early age, and Agile is well suited for prioritization. As I said before, it was born in the software world, so it's obviously well suited to software-related work. It's also great in marketing, where rapid deployment of a product is key. Okay, now one last slide comparing Agile and Waterfall. With Agile, you have incremental delivery instead of everything delivered at the end, which is the traditional project management approach. Okay, let's move on to some project management standards. There are basically three main bodies of knowledge in project management. There is the PMI's, what they call the PMBOK, PMBOK. That stands for the Project Management Body of Knowledge. There's one that was gained traction in Europe, particularly in the UK, called PRINCE2, Projects in Controlled Environments, version number 2. And there's also ISO 21500:2012, which is guidance on project management. Now these are a little bit different in that PMI and PRINCE2 are actually products that you can gain certifications in, whereas ISO 21500:2012 is simply guidelines for doing project management. Okay, now there are some new certification programs that are also emerging from traditional project management. And one of them is Lean and Agile Project Management, which we are going to see soon. Okay, bear in mind, there is much more information on quality that's going to be available at this conference. You can get training from SSD Global and actually any number of companies. For any of you that are interested in pursuing this further, and as I mentioned just a moment ago, you can get a Lean and Agile certification if you choose. Okay, there's a brand new program offered by SSD Global. Dr. Tara Van Zant Stern and her colleagues are promoting this and offering it. And I have a picture of her book. There's many books available on quality and many books on project management topics. This is one of the more recent releases, perhaps the very most recent one. And I just want to say personally that I'm learning a lot from Dr. Stern and her staff at SSD Global. They're all well-qualified professionals. They're all very helpful. They make learning fun and effective. And they're also nice people, too. Okay, now, kept you in suspense for the entire presentation. I want to move on to the who is he. All right, the guitar player is Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. I don't know if any of you guessed that. I hope maybe some of you did. Probably their most famous tune was Stairway to Heaven.
Thank you very much. To learn more about Lamont Rogers, we invite you from TVA. We invite you to go to www.rmqc.org, which stands for Rocky Mountain Quality Consortium. His bio and more information about Lamont will be on that website. And you can also visit us at www.ssdglobal.net for any information on our programs and different freebies that we have, and we have a pretty exciting community there. So this is Dr. Tara Van Zant Stern, once again thanking you for being here and signing off.